Operations on Cyberstan have officially ended as the Helldivers failed and are now forced to regroup. But some are actually looking back on this, calling this the greatest Galactic campaign the game has ever seen. Is it though? Well, that's what I intend to dive into today. So stick around and see if it is the greatest, or have we seen better. If you want to help support the channel, you know what to do. If you're on mobile, please swipe right to hype the video. And let's dive into the latest with Helldivers. Following our extremely tough battle on Cyberstan, resulting in the Helldiver player base failing to reach the final end goal of liberating it, community manager 𝗲𝗲𝗋𝗃 was seen posting this to the official HD2 Discord. This will probably get me screenshotted and sent death threats or something, but I think it was an incredibly hard-fought battle, and after so many winning streaks for GW divers, I knew it would be crushing to lose a big one. But it has been really exciting to watch everyone do this, even if it didn't result in a win. It helps me remember that loss is possible, nothing is off limits, and also I think the next time you face down Cyborgs, it's going to be extra hurty for them. The close to final stats on Cyberstan indeed showed a bloody battle took place there, with nearly 4.6 billion Borg and bots meeting their end, while the Helldivers lost just over 200 million of Super Earth's finest. Now, I said it was the close to final stats on Cyberstan because there are still nearly 2,400 divers on the planet's surface and conducting operations there. But is it the absolute peak form the game has seen since it launched 2 years ago? Well, PC Gamer seems to think so. Helldivers 2's Siege of Cyberstan is the greatest Galactic campaign the game has seen so far, with a further subheadline of, they have the plans for the Death Star... Wait, I mean, the Star of Peace. Sean Martin of PC Gamer goes on to make his case. Quote, anyone who's been kicking around the Milky Way for a while in Helldivers 2 will recall quite a few events of note in the Galactic War. We fended off a massed Illuminate invasion of Super Earth, fighting through city streets as Leviathans swam in the skies above, raining down laser fire. We assaulted the Terminid hive worlds, diving underground into dark, bug-infested labyrinths, with only the weapons on our backs to keep us safe. For my money, though, the current Machinery of Oppression update and our assault on the automaton capital of Cyberstan is the best the game has ever been. And no, I'm not just saying that because it added my beloved explosive hammer. It all started with sneaky clankers stealing the blueprints for the Star of Peace, a planet-destroying weapon for the Democracy space station. Now, yes, that is the plot of Star Wars, and what's even funnier, we're the Empire in that analogy. Still, Super Earth couldn't suffer the automatons to gain a planet-cracking weapon or to know about the single ventilation shaft that was presumably its only weakness, so we hit the road for Cyberstan, blazing a trail of destruction right into the heart of automaton territory to end their threat once and for all. This is me just speaking outside the article here for a quick interjection, and it is an interesting reference to Star Wars, right? And one that puts us again into the boots of the Empire. But instead of waiting around for the Rebel Alliance to show up and ruin our day, the Helldivers spin on this tale is that we instead hit the FTL jump drives and arrived on Cyberstan in mass to bring down our own form of terror-infused democracy in the hopes of killing every last one of them, liberating Cyberstan, and of course, in the process, destroying the plans to our Death Star. All of which we fell short on, and we'll soon see our biomechanical friends again. More on that in a minute. Because it's time for PC Gamer to lay out their case for why Cyberstan was the greatest Galactic campaign yet seen in Helldivers 2. Here's what they said. Quote, there's a multitude of reasons why this update has been so good. We got new toys to play with, like the wonderfully designed Bastion tank, which isn't actually a tank, but a tank destroyer. Don't ask me why Super Earth gave us a vehicle from World War II, but its combo of major firepower and limited turret range makes for some fun team building between the gunner and the driver as they try to line up targets. We got new enemies, or should I say old enemies, in the form of the returning cyborg menace. trying to accomplish strategic objectives while getting shotgunned and roundhouse kicked into oblivion can be quite the hurdle. Not to mention the new colossal Vox engines, towering weapon platforms that trundle through each area, firing rockets, lasers, and Gatling guns while screaming out automaton propaganda. The best bit, their only major weakness is underneath them, so you have to run between their tracks with explosives like some street fighter taking out a German tank in Stalingrad. Despite all that, the best bit for me is that Cyberstand is bloody difficult. For those who've been around the Galactic block, like me, it's arguably the hardest the game's ever been, so much so that we might not win. Now that's really exciting. Alright, agreed on the points he makes about difficulty and the new enemy types. They're definitely challenging. But to answer Mr. Martin's question about the tank and why it is designed that way, well, that answer comes down to power. Now, to help out here, I asked Google about what speed and mobility meant in terms of power within video games, and as I run through this, let me know if this sounds like the Bastion tank or if it doesn't. And more importantly, knowing what we know about Arrowhead and their realism shtick, why the tank was probably designed this way. Here's what Google had to say. In video games, speed and mobility are indeed considered a form of power, often acting as one of the most significant advantages a player can have, particularly in competitive, high-level gameplay. High mobility enables players to control engagement, dictate the pace of a fight, and escape danger, often acting as a substitute for raw damage or defense. The TLDR here is that if we were given a tank that was mobile, heavily armored, and more importantly, had a turret with 360 degrees of rotation, that would give us Helldivers too much power. Because as the Google summary says, high mobility allows us to control engagements, dictate the pace of battles, and escape danger, often acting as a substitute for raw damage or defense. Now, you've seen some of my tank background footage I've used in many of the videos since it arrived, and I can tell you that a tank that did not delay its rotation after using the commands would be great. But a tank with a fully rotating turret would give us so many more opportunities to use cover by peeking at an angle while giving the turret a clean shot, only to reverse and go back behind cover when the inevitable incoming barrages arrived. And since Cyberstan was essentially built in a series of crisscrossing straight lines, we could have used that extra mobility to absolutely own enemies like the box engines. Now, yes, I know that with the right crew using communication, the tank can still be a presence on the battlefield, but with no delay and fast rotations, a turret built to swivel 360 degrees, and without what we saw the devs do, the tripling of all bot and Borg rockets versus our vehicles just prior to us blitzing Cyberstan, the tank would have been picked more than just 3.8% of dives versus the automatons, according to the stats on Helldive.live, putting what should have been our ultimate assault vehicle way down in 30th place among stratagems chosen since the Machinery of Oppression update dropped versus the automatons. By the way, just a crazy thought here, how nuts would it be if whenever we're about to go up against the bots and Borgs Part 2, their durable damage buffs would somehow be reverted to original values, making it evident that the changes were made for Cyberstan to put us at even more of a disadvantage. Anyways, I'll set aside the tinfoil hat for now, and let's continue on with what they had to say. Quote, Helldiver 2's Galactic campaign is famously GM'd by a devious mastermind called Joel, though since launch the team has expanded. It's one of the reasons the game's major order system feels so responsive. It's like playing a tabletop RPG with a GM or Game Master actively responding as you go, throwing complications into the mix and keeping you on your toes. But thanks to the current forces and reserve system for our assault on Cyberstan, this GMing has really kicked up a notch. Agreed on the forces and reserve meter statement he made there. I mean, that thing really did shake things up, but there was the bit thrown in where all diver deaths, regardless of if they were participating in the major order or not, counted against it, which is what I think the majority of the player base that disagreed with it will point to as the major flaw in its design. Now, be forewarned, this article seems to have been delayed based on the next statement. You see, we only have so many lives with which to take Cyberstan. Looking at the screen as I wrote this, we were at 97,272,293 out of 410 million. That's right, over 300 million divers had already died in the assault, and that number is far bigger now. The fun part, though, Joel keeps giving us ways to earn more lives. These strategic imperatives are sub-objectives, such as diverting some players to kill Terminids or Illuminate and complete operations against those factions. My favorite one of these involved moving the Democracy space station away from Cyberstan to pick up 35 million frozen divers Super Earth had apparently forgotten about on Fort Justice. To do that, though, we lost the support stratagems that the DSS provides. It's such a great little devil's bargain, like something straight out of the Blades in the Dark or another TTRPG. Defeating the Illuminate invasion of Super Earth felt like more of a sure thing, but the fact we can actually run out of lives to take Cyberstan has really upped the ante and made community decisions feel far more meaningful. We've seen this mention of tabletop games show up countless times since Helldivers 2 dropped, and in case you didn't know, that is how the Galactic War operates. You've got the game master, in this case Joel and company, who create the battles, and we have to engage the enemy on those terms, which has led to more than a little backlash from the community as to how the war is actually managed, which we've spoken about many times here on the channel in the past. There's just a little bit more here from PC Gamer, so let's finish it up, and then, of course, I've got some thoughts, especially after the notice we received in-game. Quote, Helldivers 2 has really gone from strength to strength this last year. As a guide writer who covers many different live service games, there's nothing quite like it in the space. It's incredible to see how even 2 years after launch, a major campaign like this brings players flocking back to be a part of a historical event and its life cycle. If you're like me, the kind of person who waited for hours with other Destiny 2 players to watch the almighty crash of the Traveler transform, then you're sure to enjoy Helldivers 2's community-driven campaigns. I'm not sure I've ever experienced a game that is rooted so heavily in community-determined events, not just witnessed by players, but created by them as well in many ways. There's no better phrase to describe this game than, "You don't know, man, you weren't there." Sure, there's arguably a FOMO component to it, but also not really. Anyone can be a part of these events unfolding in the Galactic War if they have the game. Whether defending Super Earth's streets, navigating gloomy hive world tunnels, or, as now, fighting through the bot-defended industrial complexes of Cyberstan. Even though we were ultimately defeated in our siege on the automaton capital, it's been one of my favorite major updates either way. Okay, as always, links to all of these articles can be found down in the video description and pinned comments. And before I drop in my 2 cents, let's see what the community says on all of this. Is Cyberstan the greatest galactic campaign the game has seen so far? Drop a comment and tell us which one you think is #1, or if you agree with Mr. Sean Martin at PC Gamer, let us know on that one as well. Now, I personally thought that Cyberstan and everything the Machinery of Oppression update to the game was just fine. I'd rank it second behind the Heart of Democracy campaign that built and built and built until the Illuminate eventually set foot on Super Earth. Prior to that shootout for the Heart of Democracy, we saw John Helldiver announce on the Game Awards stage that the Illuminate had hit Calypso, and immediately the diver fandom rallied to that planet's defense, resulting in some of our highest KDRs we've ever seen. We lost just under 39 million divers while bodying a staggering 3.1 billion squid. Everyone was having a blast with that initial skirmish, and we all agreed we couldn't wait for the main course, whenever that would take place. But then the Meridia wormhole started to move, and we saw it slowly creep over to Angel's Venture, forever fracturing that planet. Moradesh and Ives suffered the same fate. There was that elaborate decoding the community had to go through with the satellites to bring the network back online to view the wormhole, and then it happened. The Illuminate sprang from its center and went ham on Super Earth. Now, I remember that campaign, fighting the mobs of Illuminate in the streets of our very own super cities. We had that new and unique Destroy the Overship mission where we brought up the orbital cannon from underneath the Children's City playground. Regions of our actual planet Earth fought like hell to defend their in-game super cities, making IRL news around the world. But the deciding factor here that made that battle for Super Earth the best the game has seen was the fact that we could not lose. Our backs were against the wall because if the Illuminate started seizing cities, they would gain the momentum, and that would lead to our ultimate destruction. It was all or nothing, which wasn't present in the Cyberstan campaign, unless you look at it from the perspective of the cyborg. You've heard me say that overall, I think Machinery of Oppression was a good piece of content that had some flaws with its endgame mechanics and bugged enemies, so I would personally place it, let's call it a close second to the Heart of Democracy. Of course, That leaves the Into the Untested update, where we were fighting the bugs and the other kind of bugs on their home turf, and 𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗃 netted us nearly 271 million dead Helldivers over the initial blitz and subsequent missions we took there. And now, based on the recent in-game dispatches, it looks like we're just getting started with the Borg and bots, and Cyberstan was just the appetizer. Super Earth's defenses have been tightened, and we're starting to pull our forces back to protect our homeworld. So overall, it looks very much the same as the Illuminate versus the Helldivers, Phase 1 and Phase 2, and also when we went after the bugs and initially got our asses kicked on 𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗃, only to go back there and finish the job. It looks like the major story arc will continue, and we may finally get in sight of forever vanquishing the Borg off the map. But that's just my thoughts on it all. Was Cyberstan the best we've seen? Well, here's where you, my viewers, get to weigh in. My vote, personally, as you know, is for the heart of democracy, but what I want to know is where you land on the 3 major campaigns we've seen since the game launched. What's your personal rankings for Super Earth, 𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗃, and now Cyberstan? And just as important as your rankings, tell us why you rank them like that, because I'm genuinely interested in what you have to say. Remember to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my future upload alerts. If you're on mobile, please take advantage of the swipe right to hype function. A massive shout out goes out to all of my hardcore channel supporters. And until the next one, this is 𝗲𝗲𝗹𝗶𝘀𝗂𝗋 signing off.